With Star Trek Beyond premiering on Friday, I think I at least need to talk about the 2 Star Trek movies in part of this reboot to the Star Trek film franchise. So Star Trek is directed by J.J. Abrams. It came out in 2009. I, however, didn't see this movie in 2009, simply because I honestly didn't have that much interest in seeing it when it came out. Because although I was a Star Wars fan growing up, I never really had anything against Star Trek. It was just something that I had never gotten into. As a result, I actually didn't end up seeing Star Trek until a few years after it was released. But I gotta say this right now, I am so happy I ended up seeing this movie because it's awesome. First of all, I absolutely love the opening of this movie. It starts out on a Federation starship, the USS Kelvin, and it just starts getting attacked mercilessly by this Romulan ship. And right here, in the beginning of this movie, you're on the edge of your seat. Because not only are the visuals awesome, not only do they portray space well in the fact that it doesn't have any sound, but the action is just so intense here. You know right here that the USS Kelvin is going to be destroyed and anyone that's on that ship is going to die. One person in particular on this ship that's aware of that is George Kirk, played by Chris Hemsworth. Yet before he was ever Thor, he was George Kirk. How about that? And after the captain of the USS Kelvin is killed by Nero, the captain of the Romulan ship that's destroying the USS Kelvin, George Kirk is named the new captain of the USS Kelvin in his place, and in his first act as captain, he orders everyone off this ship, including his pregnant wife who has just gone into labor. And although everybody is able to get off this ship, George Kirk is not able to because the autopilot on the USS Kelvin has been destroyed. So in order to allow everyone to escape with their lives, George Kirk has to stay on this ship in a kamikaze mission against the Romulan ship. And this scene just hits me where I live. Because in his final acts, George Kirk is using the ship to talk to his pregnant wife just after she delivered their son, James Kirk. He's telling her he's not going to be able to make it. He's not going to get to hold their baby boy. All he's able to do is tell her he loves her, and they name their son together. And then he dies, sacrificing himself in this mission to allow everyone else to escape. It's just one of those scenes that you knew right out the gate this was going to be an awesome movie. And later on in the movie, we meet another character that really brings a lot to this movie, Spock. And what really makes Spock such an awesome character is the conflict he brings in this movie. And that is essentially the conflict that he is always facing in himself. Because Spock is half Vulcan and half human, and as a result, the logical side of his Vulcan side is constantly at war with the emotional side of his human side. And you see that throughout this movie really taking a toll on what Spock thinks he should do or what he shouldn't do. It just brings so much to this movie. It's also later on in this movie we run into James Kirk. He's now an adult. And after he just gets into a massive bar fight with a bunch of Starfleet cadets, he gets confronted by Captain Christopher Pike. And Pike is essentially showing up because he wants to encourage Kirk to enlist into Starfleet Academy. Because we see at this point that Kirk is a really reckless, really arrogant, really immature guy, but he's also really smart. Pike can see that intelligence in Kirk, and he knows that intelligence can be used in Starfleet Academy. And above all, he truly believes that the son of George Kirk should be destined for greatness. And with that, Kirk does choose to enlist in Starfleet Academy, and one thing that he does in particular in Starfleet Academy is he beats the Kobayashi Maru test. Spock himself had designed this test because it is essentially meant to fail, but Kirk, for some reason, has beaten it. It's later on that we discover that Kirk had actually cheated to beat the system. And I really love this moment, not just because it really shows the rebellious side of Kirk, how, you know, he's not quite a Boy Scout, he is essentially going to play by his own rules, but also because it is the first sign of the conflict between Kirk and Spock. Because that is one of, if not the biggest driving force of this movie, the relationship between those two. Because they are just polar opposites of each other. Because on one side, you have Kirk, who's a guy who loves to jump the gun, doesn't really think things through, does what he feels is best. And on the other side, you have Spock, who's always trying to figure things out, always really thinking things through, and doing what he knows is best. And as a result, in the beginning of this movie, these two just hate each other. A hatred that particularly starts off when Spock exposes Kirk for cheating, which prevents Kirk from officially joining any of the ships. However, Kirk is still able to get aboard the USS Enterprise because Leonard McCoy, who's the doctor for that ship, he injected Kirk with some sort of illness so he could bring him on board. So in other words, Leonard McCoy was a true bro to Kirk by getting him sick. However, later on in the movie, the USS Enterprise discovers a lightning storm in space similar to the one in the very beginning of this movie, and everyone finds out that it is the same Romulan ship from the beginning of this movie now coming to destroy the planet Vulcan. And the ship begins to do that by drilling into Vulcan's core. The USS Enterprise knows it needs to stop that drill in order to save Vulcan. So with that, Pike sends Kirk and another member of USS Enterprise, Sulu, onto the drill to stop it. And what's awesome is these guys just space jump literally out of the USS Enterprise into the atmosphere of Vulcan. It's just so cool literally seeing them basically skydive into a planet. And the two of them just now throw down with some of the members on the Romulan ship. Kirk just beats down one of these guys. Sulu's able to take out the other guy in a really awesome sword fight. And then the two of them just open fire on the drill itself, which is able to disable it. But unfortunately, it's not enough to save it. Nero is still able to launch this red matter into Vulcan's core, which now creates a black hole around Vulcan, which starts to destroy it from within. Spock, however, knows that his mother and father and other members of the Vulcan High Council are still on Vulcan, and with that, he beams himself down there to save them. Spock is able to teleport himself, the High Council, and his father back to the USS Enterprise, but just before his mother could have been beamed back, they lose her after she falls off a cliff and his mother dies. It's a moment that really makes you feel for Spock, simply because you know he wants to lash out in emotion over his mother dying, but he also knows that he needs to be reasonable and be logical in the Vulcan side of him, because for so long people have been saying it is a negativity, a handicap almost, that he is half human. As a result, since Pike ended up being captured by Nero, Spock is now given control over the USS Enterprise. And it's in this moment Spock is continuing to fight his emotional side. He's continuing to be logical throughout this, which really makes Kirk upset because he knows if they go by Spock's ideas, they won't be able to save Pike. Spock knows that Kirk isn't going to listen to him at any point on the ship, and with that, he maroons Kirk on Delta Vega. And it's on this planet, Kirk ends up running into a much older Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, which I'm sure had all the Trekkies really excited to see that he was back playing Spock, even if it was brief in this movie. And here Spock reveals where he and Nero come from. In the future, Nero's planet Romulus was threatened by a supernova. Spock tried to create this red matter to create this artificial black hole to consume the supernova, but it wasn't enough, and Romulus was destroyed along with Nero's family. And the black hole only resulted in Nero and his ship and Spock and his vessel being sent back in time. And because his planet was destroyed, Nero wants to take full revenge against the Federation. And he decided to start by marooning Spock on Delta Vega so that he could watch Vulcan be destroyed by him. And now Nero's next target is going to be Earth, unless Kirk can get back to the US Enterprise, warn everybody, and stop him. So with that, still on Delta Vega, Kirk and the older Spock, they go to meet with a technician on this planet, Montgomery Scott, who's played by Simon Pegg. Never a bad option. He's able to beam himself and Kirk back onto the Enterprise, but before they did, Spock gave a new mission for Kirk. And that is, he needs to provoke Spock to unleash the emotional side of him, so that Spock can realize that he is not capable of leading the USS Enterprise, so that Kirk can become the captain of the Enterprise and lead this mission, something that Kirk is destined to do. And now once they get back on the ship, Kirk confronts Spock, and he's just really trying to provoke him. He's bringing up the death of Spock's mother, how Spock didn't really love his mother, you know, things like that, stuff that you can truly see is starting to piss him off. And eventually Spock just snaps and he just beats the fucking shit out of Kirk. But it's after Spock snaps out of it, he does not realize that he is emotionally compromised and he is not capable of leading the Enterprise. With that, Kirk is now given command of the Enterprise, and now they make their way towards the Romulus ship to stop them from destroying Earth and to save Pike. Kirk and Spock, they finally agree to put their differences aside. They agree to board this ship together. And the final conflict in this movie, it's just so entertaining and exciting and awesome. On one side, you have Kirk just fighting with Nero and his henchmen, and it's awesome. Just seeing him shoot guys down, fight others one-on-one, being really sarcastic with them as he does. And then on the other side, you see Spock in his own little vessel in space just opening fire on the drill to destroy it once and for all. It's intense, it's exciting, and above all, it's so awesome finally seeing these two work together. So Kirk and Spock, they're able to stop the Romulus ship, they get beamed back to the Enterprise. After Spock was able to use his vessel to create a black hole onto the Romulus ship itself, now Kirk just orders the Enterprise to just open fire on the ship to destroy it. The ship is destroyed, Nero is killed, and the Earth is saved. For his heroics and his leadership, Kirk is promoted to captain, and he is given permanent command over the USS Enterprise. Spock also remains on the Enterprise, whom Kirk names his first officer. It's really nice to see that Kirk did that, because it at least shows that the two finally at least have an understanding with each other. So all in all, Star Trek is such an awesome movie. Chris Pine is fantastic as Kirk. Zachary Quinto is fantastic as Spock. I love seeing the conflict between the two sides of Spock. I love seeing Kirk aspiring to do what he's destined to do. I love seeing the conflict between the two of them and seeing the two of them grow together throughout this movie. I love all the characters in this movie. I thought Nero was a solid villain for this movie. The story was awesome. The movie was written really well. It has fantastic action scenes, amazing visual effects. As I said, I was never a Star Trek fan growing up, but I really do feel this is a movie that Trekkies and newcomers like I was can truly have an awesome time and really enjoy this movie. I really don't think they could have done this reboot any better. It's the kind of reboot that movies should strive to be like. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.